Hi Math Planners, welcome back for the Unit 2 installment of my virtual previews. I promise this one doesn't read like a Blackboard training like the last one did. First on this video, we'll discuss the TEKS covered in Unit 2. Then we will examine how these TEKS are broken into individual objectives in the unit at a glance. I will spend a good deal of time reviewing a few of the recently uploaded resources. Near the end, we will examine some ways you can adapt a multiple choice question into a fuller exit ticket that allows for better data around scholar misunderstandings. Unit 2 areas of focus include multiplication, division, strip diagrams, input-output tables, and number patterns. As you can see, 4.4b, c, and d involve multiplication, and 4.4e and f involve division. However, all 5 of these TEKS support the Readiness TEKS 4.4h, solve with fluency 1 and 2 step problems involving multiplication and division, including interpreting remainders. 4.5a involves using strip diagrams to model multi-step problems and equations. We've previously discussed using a problem-solving strategy like UPSC to help scholars break apart and make sense of longer word problems. Using a strip diagram within the U of UPSC can provide scholars with a visualization of the mathematical situation and support the development of this TEKS even earlier than it appears on the Unit at a Glance document. The final TEKS of the unit is 4.5b, represent problems using an input-output table and numerical expressions to generate a number pattern that follows a given rule. This TEKS is pretty wordy and can be broken down into 2 concepts: input-output tables and using a rule to write a sequence of numbers or vice versa. I've uploaded the unit test alongside the Unit at a Glance documents on Blackboard because these are the 2 documents I use most when creating lesson plans. This way, when you go to look at the Unit at a Glance for Unit 2, you'll be reminded that you should also go ahead and preview the Unit 2 test. The test has a data tracker as well, so that scholars can examine their performance on individual TEKS. You'll notice that I included related Texas Go Math modules within each objective for easier correlation. I do not, however, advise simply going in order through the workbook. While I do feel that the book follows a logical progression through the learning trajectory for both multiplication and division, for TEKS with multiple days listed for pacing, I may use the workbook one of those days. As with Unit 1, there are several flex days available, so there's some wiggle room for TEKS that take longer to master than anticipated, plus review days before the unit test. If your campus is taking TWAs, you'll also want to take that into account when you're creating your calendar for Unit 2. Quite a few resources have been added to the resource bank, so please take a look when you have time. Several multiplication resources have been added, including my own take on progressing along the learning trajectory with multiplication, along with guiding questions for implementation, and some examples for non-traditional multiplication methods. There's a neat resource for formative assessment for multiplication and division, as well as sets of problems for multiplication, division, and multi-step. One question I've been asked is how to develop exit tickets, so I wanted to spend a little time in this video discussing how you can take a multiple choice question and supersize it. Take, for example, this question from the Texas Go Math Module 9 test, available by downloading the Texas Go Math Module tests from Think Central. This is where I pull our unit test questions from. The first thing you need to do is take away the answer choices, because too many times I see scholars relying on their multiplication skills to logic their way around a division problem. Providing this to scholars as is means that getting the answer correct might be due to division computational efficiency, but often they try out the answer choices and are really demonstrating multiplication computational efficiency. So now let's look at how this question can be used to probe deeper. The surface level question is 4,000 divided by 5. And right away I wonder if they realize how the quotient would change if the situation were 400 divided by 5 instead. So I'm going to add on a second part to the question. Whenever possible, try to include a writing component to an exit ticket so that scholars don't have a way to opt out of showing their thinking. For this question specifically, this extension will allow me to determine whether the scholars are able to use place value connections with division, specifically 0 patterns. Our next 4th grade math Skype call is scheduled for Tuesday, September 19th at 4:30 p.m. I would really love to have additional teachers attend. I will share some math lesson planning tips that I've learned during my 8 years of planning math so that you can work smarter instead of harder or longer. We will look ahead to Unit 2 and make sure that everyone has their calendar mapped out with objectives. I will also share my Math Bootcamp PowerPoint and how I make weekly adjustments to this to fit my scholars' needs as I spiral previous and current TEKS. Please let me know if there's any way I can further support you. Math is my jam for sure, and if you're having trouble developing an activity for a certain TEKS, or maybe you need to bounce ideas around for differentiation or reteach, I'm here to help. Have a great Unit 2.